You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
The problem I always had with, and I thought years ago, Stevie, the shift, it would make sense aesthetically. I hate the way it looks, right? And that sounds like what a childish thing to say. But as a fan, I have an 8-year-old son, right? You've got kids. I don't want to explain, like, here's where it makes the sport too complicated and adds to, like, the MIT instead of MLB. But I've always had a problem with, nobody told Buddy Ryan he can't run the 46 defense. We didn't tell Jim Boeheim he can't have the zone, right? Bob Huggins, you can't do the press. We have to go beat it. A, do you think baseball will be better off shifting to this area where we take it away? And B, even if that's the case, do you have the problem I have that basically we're admitting the hitters couldn't figure it out?
Yeah. So, yes, I have the same sort of thought you do. I've always had this part of me that thinks, you can't tell me go out and win a game and then say, okay, but you have to tie this hand behind your back because you can't do it this way. Or, you can't play man-to-man coverage, or you can't play the zone, or you need, and yet other sports have changed rules. The NBA's changed about, the zone versus the big man and the 3-second defensive 3 seconds. And so, I've always been sort of opposed to it, but I also am frustrated by the lack of offense and the lack of singles in the game. And so I've kind of come around on it. Now, I personally would take it even further than what they're suggesting with the rule, which is just 2 infielders or on each side of second base, all 4 of them with their feet in the infield dirt. I would actually have put hash marks where they need to stand, because I don't want them standing behind second base, just on the left field side or on the right field side. I want a ground ball that goes up the middle past the pitcher to be a single. That's because it used to be a single. And so I would actually put hash marks where you can't, you have to stay away from the middle of the field and go all in. That being said, I don't know that it's going to change hitters' approaches. I just think that some of the mistakes that they hit that are ground balls are just going to be hits now. I don't think that guys are going to say, well, let me go for a single now. They're still going to try to hit home runs. It's just when they hit a ground ball, they've got a chance to get a single, which is good enough. It's better than what we have. And with some of the other changes that we have potentially coming in the game, I'm really excited about all of them, honestly. I think it's going to change everything the commissioner wants. He's going to look like a hero coming out of this. I really believe it. I think he's going to look great, because you're going to get more singles, more offense, more base stealing, faster pace of play, more action, and it's going to take less time to play. And so I think that it's going to turn out to be a win for the commissioner.
Here's where I think they've succeeded most, and go back to something you said. The NBA, and it's the same example, Stevie, that I use. The 3-point line, we'll move it in, we'll move it back. They have always been honest and never afraid to say, I'm going to adjust to the game because we're an entertainment product, right? Baseball had 2 years of the ball. We don't know what happened to the ball. We'll investigate, like all of that nonsense. It's like that would never happen in the NBA, right? Like, just admit it. Say, this is what we tried to do. I love the concept that baseball is saying, we feel like we need to fix this and we're going to do it. Like, they're not hiding how they're doing it. Right. I want to ask you about hitting. The uppercut swings, especially from lefties. Do you think that part at least has a chance of being cut down, where you might get some of those guys to relax a bit, feeling like, hey, look, if I go ahead and let it eat, I got to get it up in the air because I can't have it even be a line drive, where now they might have more success. Do you think that'll help on the left side of the plate?
Right. So I think that with maybe a 2-strike approach, you might see a guy cut down a swing a little bit to try to put it in play, thinking at least I've got a better chance now than I used to. But I still think the overall mentality still exists among offenses and hitters, is that the best way to score a single run in an inning is to have 3 batters come to the plate trying to hit a solo home run, as opposed to 3 guys trying to hit singles to score a run. And so I think you're still going to have the mentality of hitting it over the infield, hitting it to the wall, through the wall, or over the wall. And I think that some of the mishits that will be ground balls will be hits. But I do think that probably with 2 strikes, you'll see more guys maybe trying to cut down and make some contact, with the idea that I might have a better chance of doing that with my swing and miss. I think. But I will say also this year, I thought that I've seen more hitters this year start to make the adjustment to the shift. We saw Max Muncy get a bunt down the other day. We've seen guys just try to go the other way. In fact, Ben Sheets for the White Sox in a game on Thursday night that they're winning 14-0, and a position player came in to pitch. He took a fastball away and just, Chris Everett two-hand backhanded into left field, taking a single, and he kind of chuckled about it and felt shame, like, geez, I know I should try to hit a home run against. But I've seen guys start to make an adjustment, but it's not happening quickly enough. And so I think that these are the right moves the commissioner needs to make.
I miss the hit and run. It's one of my favorite parts of the game, Steve. Do you think we get that back maybe a little bit? It might take time. Maybe it takes half a season to see and prove, right, that there's bearing of fruit of putting it in play, having more success. But do you think we get that back in the game? Because I think the game talks about steals all the time, and I love stolen bases, but we don't talk enough about, I miss the hit and run. I miss watching that.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that I'm not sure we're going to necessarily get more hit and runs, because I think base stealers are going to be much more successful on a straight steal. And therefore, I'd rather take my shot to have the hitter take the pitch, let him get in scoring position, and then try to drive him in. Because with the additional 3 inches on the bases, first base is now going to be 4.5 inches closer to second base. The pitcher can only throw over twice. And therefore, after that, I know I can get a huge lead. And so in the stolen bases in the minor leagues, there's 2.85 stolen bases per game in the minor leagues right now. There's not a team in baseball that averages 1 stolen base per game right now. And so we are going to see, and think about every stolen base that you watch in a game when a guy gets thrown out. He's out by a matter of inches. 4.5 inches is a mile.
Oh, it's huge.
It's huge.
People don't realize that because they don't think about how much those, which obviously you and I know, how much pitchers are timed to the plate and how much the precise nature of all of that is. It's going to make a big difference. It might also create a lot more replays because of the attempted steals, which will be a whole other thing we have to deal with, right?
Right.
With close plays, which, I guess you take, it's not all going to be positive. I want to go deeper into the hitting, just one more before I shift elsewhere, pun intended. As somebody who dealt for so many years with development of young kids, right, and understands how that goes, where did we, now that we're going to look in the rear view, right? We always talked about for years, the hitters got to figure it out and they got to learn. Now they're not going to have to figure it out, right? So let's look in rear view. Where has it been screwed up where it seems like from the outside, the idea of the work that would need to take place has either not been done early enough, so guys are screwed up the wrong way and they can't fix it, or it's almost a lazy mentality of, like, to your point, I'll go up trying to hit a home run. At what point in the process did we not allow the hitters or give them what they needed to fix this? Because I'm upset that they couldn't figure this out. Are you? Like, in some ways, I'm like, really? We're not good enough to do this? Come on.
I think, no, here's the thing. I think that if the numbers indicated that this was the better way to go, I think they would have invested the time and energy to do it. I just think the analytics said, sure, they're shifting. We're still better served, instead of trying to hit it the other way, trying to hit it over the shift, because it's still our best way to score a run in an inning. And so I think that look, the way the game is now, and it's so analytically driven, if there was bang for the buck and the time and energy to get everybody to start to inside out the baseball, drive it the other way, I think teams would have done it. Now, I think that there are some selective players that maybe that could still be part of it, but so many small guys still try to drive the ball to the gap. And that's what they're being taught, because that's what the numbers seem to indicate is appropriate. And that's why, even though we're going to take away the shift, I don't know that it's necessarily going to lead to hitters changing their approach. I just think the approach that they're still implementing will allow more balls to go through the infield and be base hits. But I think everything is so analytically driven right now. It's all about, where can I find the value? Where's the best way for me to do this? What's the most efficient and effective way for me to score runs? And it's not about, we don't want to do it. It's like, it's not worth us doing it because it's not going to make us better than what we are right now.
I want to stay rules, and Steve Phillips joining me here on Unfiltered. I want to stay rules for a second and then shift gears. But this not mentioned in terms of the changes, but when I look at the problems we're having now, I remember when the Cousins-Posey play happened, and I remember being on a spring training tour at MLB Network Radio where we were together and you still are now, and I remember every catcher this was 3 weeks into the season, maybe less than that. If you remember how quickly that happened, they didn't know what they were going to do. They didn't want it. The catchers liked the collisions. It's part of like when they grow up, they enjoyed all. They didn't, right? How are we still years later now having so many issues with not knowing where to block the plate, how that's supposed to be handled, and how do we fix this? Because that's a major problem right now, is it not?
Right. It is, and I think it's because it's not practiced, other than maybe a little bit in spring training. Um, it's every time it happens, I look at the play and I think, well, of course this is how they ruled on it, because the rule says this, and therefore, if you're standing between the base runner and home plate waiting for the ball, and then you catch the ball, but you were there before you had the ball, then you're violating the rule. And so it seems really clear to me, and I think it has to be reinforced over and over and over again, that every single time the catcher needs to set up in fair territory, in front of the plate, wait for the ball, and then only move in front of the plate to block it once you're catching the baseball. It's not that difficult to rule, but I think that, what happens is a catcher will say, yeah, but the throw's coming from third base.
Right. That's
and
right.
So for me to be like, and here's the thing, and I don't love it that, we are expecting a catcher to be a wide receiver with his feet on
that's right. That's exactly
the sideline,
That's
trying to make
right.
a catch.
That's exactly right.
Because we're setting him up to get hurt that way.
That's exactly right.
So I am thinking that that if the catcher is in front of the plate, there's got to be a way to allow for some understanding that if the catcher is right in line from where the throw's coming, he has to have exactly the same right as the runner does to be able to have a line to catch the ball. The base runner has every right to have a pathway to the plate, just as I think the catcher has every right to a pathway to be in a straight line to catch it, instead of being a wide receiver on the sideline. So my view is there's a way to tweak it and still protect the players. Now, I will tell you that, I know this, and this was before the Posey rule, but when Mike Piazza was my catcher and a ball was hit to the outfield and the runner was rounding third heading home and Piazza's in front of the home plate getting ready to block it, I said to myself every time, get out of the way. Get out of the way.
Right, exactly.
Don't block
it's
the
not
plate.
worth it. The run isn't worth it, right?
Give him the run. And yet catchers,
they want it, right?
They want it. It's like Brian
It's part of the job.
It's when in the NFL, Urlacher, was the one guy who was honest, where, you have all these concussions. One, players don't want to talk about the concussion because they want to stay in the game.
That's
right. They're going to lie about it.
They like getting hit.
And at the end of their careers, we can say, well, boy, they put themselves, but they wanted it every single day.
That's why they wanted to do the job when they were 8 years old.
And they loved it.
Loved that.
Right.
No catcher didn't want that. The catchers didn't ask for it. To your point, the owners and the GMs, who it's an investment. Right. That's a totally different story. Let me go to that. Look, I said this the other day. It doesn't matter what Cash does, Brian Cashman. He's like Phil Jackson to people. It's like, Phil didn't know how to coach because Michael Jordan's on the team, or right. You live that life more than anyone. You know that, right? What that's like. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, he went and got Benintendi early, right? Which people thought was great at the time, right? They lost out on Castillo, but clearly the Mariners gave a lot. They didn't lose out. They went and got Montas, who was the second guy. Got a reliever that was controlled. Nobody thought they could from Chicago. They made moves. You had injuries that aren't Brian's fault, like Michael King, right? You think about the Chapman and what's happened to him. Donaldson, we know, has not been good. Stanton, all these things. Everybody wants to put on Booney or Brian Cashman. And I'm thinking to myself, which I'm sure a GM has thought many times, when is it going to be the players? Like, in what other world is it not the employees ever? What's your spin from where you sit on this, and how familiar does it feel looking at the way the Yankees are being discussed right now, outside of Aaron Judge?
Oh, yeah, it's dire in New York right now. I mean, dire. And it's like, and everybody, it's so funny because everybody thinks, well, if it doesn't work, you just need to change the people that are making the decisions.
Right.
But if we all liked the decisions when they made them,
then,
and oh, by the way, he's the same guy who made the decisions that led them to the best record in baseball for the first half of the season.
That's right.
And so then we look at, okay, well, what went wrong in the second half? Why are they, 24 and 42 or whatever they are? And it comes down to, right now, they had 5 players on the field the other day that had number 90s on the back of their uniform. They had 90s on the back of the uniform.
Training. Like
yes,
spring training.
right. And so they got all the minor leaguers playing at the major league level. Matt Carpenter's got a broken foot. Benintendi's got a broken wrist. You've got LeMahieu with a bad toe. You got Stanton who foul balls off his foot. You got Rizzo with back and headache issues. I mean, tell me what team is going to keep winning when you take 5 or 6 key pieces out of their offense. And, oh, by the way, you've got Severino on the injured list. You've got no Chapman who in getting tattoos and infections. You've lost King, and you've had all of these different issues. I mean, the fact that they are where they are, he should get accolades for it.
Yeah.
And so I don't, I'm not. And look, I think that the Steinbrenners, Hank and Hal Steinbrenner, have a different perspective. Hal Steinbrenner, a much different perspective on the team, and than their dad did. And so I think that they understand the bigger picture more than George did.
Sure.
And so I can't imagine, but it's New York, and I don't know. There's a certain level of arrogance around the Yankees that think, well, if we're not winning a World Series, it's a failure. There are other good teams in the league. There actually are other good teams. And so, so they're limping into it, but I think they're going to hold on and win the division.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know you spend a lot of time, obviously, watching and dealing with the Jays. I was saying this yesterday. I believe in each league, there's one team. It's the AEIOU, sometimes Y. This year for me, more than other years. I know baseball, you can never predict the 2010 Phillies and a million other things, right? The Nationals with Strasburg, everything else. But I look at it and I say, in whatever order, Dodgers, Mets, Braves, Astros, sometimes Yankees. That's kind of the list. There's one team in each league I look at, and I want to get your take on this, that I think could, in the right frame of mind, with the right things going right for 3-4 weeks, be dangerous in each league and in the October portion. And that's the Jays and the Cardinals. The Jays, to me, you go look at this past weekend, the sandwich game when they didn't have Gausman or Manoah, they lost. But in a postseason, you could shorten those things down. And the Guardians hitters and some of these young hitters with the Rays are not going to hit that kind of pitching if those guys pitch the way they're capable. How dangerous can Toronto be in October, at least to get to an LCS? I don't know about you. It's hard to believe anybody beats Houston in 7. You got to knock them off in 5, I feel like. But how about the Jays in October?
Yeah, so I think the Jays can be a scary team. I mean, Alek Manoah is the real deal. He is the real deal. Competitive, great stuff. Great approach, commands his pitches. Gausman's really good. Barrios is going to be the key, right? Can he stay locked in and not throw it over the plate as much? He tries to get everybody out by throwing it over the plate instead of throwing it over the plate early and then breaking it off the plate late. But Stripling's been great for them too. Really good. Their bullpen has really stabilized in the second half of the season, and they need Bichette to stay hot. They've missed that one big bat to really stay hot this year. Teoscar Hernandez could be that guy, whomever that is. They play good defense. Other than Bichette's not great at shortstop, but Chapman helps a lot at third. So I think they could. The other team for me in the American League, I think Seattle's a scary team.
Yeah, you buy them though. I mean, when you get to the postseason,
I buy Castillo and Gilbert. And I mean, their rotation is pretty good. I mean, Kirby, Robbie Ray. I mean, they're 3 or 4 deep in the rotation. Their bullpen's the best in the American League.
Can they hit good pitching in October?
Julio Rodriguez can. Ty France can. And look, all you need is Eugenio Suarez to run into one high fastball.
Right. Well, yeah, that's right.
Which is what he can
swing
do.
At him.
Haniger can hit. So I mean, they're a team for me that I don't really believe in them, but they believe in them.
Yes. House money, right? I mean, look, right? I mean, there's no pressure on them once they get in.
Right. But I think Blue Jays could be scary too.
I do. I agree with that. On the National League side, look, I mean, we've all lived this. I mean, I said this yesterday to somebody, and it's like, I don't mean to be rude to the city of St. Louis. There are many times in my 20 years doing this where I'd be in a postseason saying, am I really flying to St. Louis again? Like, how is this happening? Right. Like, David Eckstein was an MVP of a World Series. They had the Scott Spezios, Jeff Suppan. It doesn't matter who's on there. They just seem. Does this feel like that? I'm watching that game 2 days ago with Edman and that walk. I know it's the Nationals, but they're doing those cardinal things that you don't pay attention to because they're not flashy, and then all of a sudden there they are. What's your feel on St. Louis?
So Brendan Donovan gets a big base hit, and they've got different guys that'll step up and get it done. And so they're an interesting team because they do have star power. I mean, when you start looking at Goldschmidt and Arenado, and then Pujols against left-handed pitching. Those are 3 horses in the middle of the lineup.
Sure.
My big thing for them is I'm not buying the starting pitching. Now, I know Jack Flaherty came back and he threw okay his first time out, and I like Wainwright and his experience, but Jose Quintana and Jordan Montgomery don't get swings and misses, and they're a great defensive team, but in the playoffs, you need to get a strikeout when there are runners in scoring position a lot of times because the hitters creep up on the plate, the strike zones shrink, and you better be able to have stuff to throw it over the plate at times to get guys out. And I just don't know that they have that. So could they do it? Yeah, they could. There is something magical about them. I think that for me, San Diego in the best world, if you get the best Blake Snell and the best Mike Clevenger and the best Yu Darvish, you'd have a shot.
You trust Yu Darvish though in the postseason, Steve? That's the problem. Every time we've asked him to do anything other than one game with the Dodgers in the LCS, he fails.
All right. So do you trust Kershaw in the playoffs? I look at the Dodgers. I'm like, wait, smoke and mirrors, man. Tyler Anderson?
Well, no, I can't believe that Tyler Anderson. He's pitched great. I got to give him credit, though.
Right?
Got to give him credit, though.
Right. But what I'm saying is that am I buying him in the playoffs? I mean, he's been great. Am I buying, Gonsolin coming off of the injured list?
Well, that's the question.
Is Urias, is Trevor May? Urias is great. Right. Now, he's always been that weapon out of the bullpen for them, though, in the playoffs.
Which they don't have now. Right. What is Dustin May going to be? Where does he fit in?
I don't love their bullpen.
No.
I mean, yet their numbers, they've got the best pitching in baseball. So I look at them and I'm dumbfounded. By it.
I can't trust their guys. The names at the back end I can't trust. The same way the guy who we both love personally, who used to pitch at the back end for them, I don't trust with Atlanta. It's why if the Mets could somehow get to Diaz and they got the front 2 horses, to me, they're the favorites in the National League just with that.
Yeah. And Bassett, by the way.
Oh, he's been so good. He's earning some money, Steve.
As a number 3 guy.
Is he earning some money? You want to talk about?
I love him. I mean, I had no idea he was as big a personality as he is too.
And a leader, right?
Yeah,
I love what he said the other day. New York went crazy. We lost 3 games. Who cares?
Right.
I love that. Last one. I'll let you run. I make you're the Angels GM tomorrow. Artie's gone. Whoever the new owner is says you do whatever you think is right. Future of the team, in terms of trade or keep or handle Trout and Ohtani. What are you doing?
Well, I've got Trout with a no trade clause, so that complicates it. And it also will limit, because of the contract and everything else, where I can go with them. And so I would start with Ohtani and I would trade him. I mean, you're not going to win with him, so you might as well get something for him and, do it now. And somebody can have a full year of him. And so I trade him in the offseason. And I never ever draft all pitchers again in a draft, which is what they did. Here's the thing. Look at the teams that win. Yeah. How many of them have pitchers that they've developed from within their organization? Now, the Braves do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, the Rays sometimes,
but the reason the Braves, everybody said, oh, the Braves made all these great trades. They got all these pitching prospects back in return of the deals they made. You know why they win? Because of Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr. and Austin Riley. They win because of their position players. You can find pitching. And the thing is, the Angels haven't been able to find it because they're not. Trevor
they also
Cahill,
picked the wrong guys. Yeah, thank you. Matt Harvey, Julio Teheran, Steve.
And you're going to pay them $10 million to be a 3rd-tier pitcher.
It's
on, man. And then
they shop at Old Navy instead of going to Barney's. And
then they spent money on Anthony Rendon. $35 million a year. Who can't pitch? And they didn't give
Cole the extra year, right? And didn't want to give him the 9th year, and instead we're like, we got to give the money somewhere,
right?
Which is just you can't do that. It's terrible. I don't. Yeah. It's such a shame too with Ohtani, man. It's like wherever he goes, he got to be in. I don't want to see him on the Yankees just because I just don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Hearing about it, but he should be a Yankee.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I hate saying that, but it's like, for the world to be right and for baseball to, if you get a generation, Steve, in our lifetimes what he should be in terms of the map of crossover media and everything.
Right.
He gotta become a
Yeah.
free agent and sign with the Yankees.
Yeah. I think
I
you're
hate saying
right.
it, but
And he's going to get a ton of money.
a ton.
What that contract looks like is
Oh,
hard to
God only
understand.
knows.
And yet, he's a tough guy to manage because you need a 6-man rotation.
Yep.
And how do you make that work? How do you get guys to accept it? How do you get aces like Garrett Cole to say, yeah,
That's right.
I'm good.
Change that's right.
So he's a tough guy to manage. I love him, and he's like one of the easiest guys to manage, but he may be the toughest guy to manage.
Yeah, got to be a Yankee for the game.
Probably.
I mean, I hate that, but it just makes sense. Appreciate you, Stevie. Thank you, buddy.